All right. Alrighty, right. This is page 16. Look, I got a panel done. For some reason, my it came unlinked. My Apple Pencil here, and it would connect. It would say Apple Pencil, but it didn't give me the percentage of power. Maybe it ran out of power. It's another possibility. It's induction charged. I did have to leave it connected for a while before it connected back up. But I got the first panel done just now. I did the second panel. It was real quick. There ain't much to it, so I decided not to do that one on video. But it's just Vex is taking a swipe at Blaze here, and Blaze manages to parry it. Whoa, one arc there. Maybe not that arc. That kind of sucks. Let's do another one. Nope. Looking for places to get this arc, but I don't think it's going to happen. In a way that matters. Alright, forget it. Who cares? Actually, that looks okay right there. The idea that Vex is taking a swipe at Blaze, and he gets parried from off panel left. And you recognize the blade, of course. The katana blades are Fang. There he is right there. So I'm going to start drawing Fang. Fang's back. And Fang is my wild card character, my rage character of the tetralogy here. And TV tropes. I guess he'd be a hothead. I don't know. I'll have to look it up. He's like the silent, brooding type. He'd be like there's always a character that's like Wolverine or Batman or something like that. It's kind of like the tough character. And that's what he represents. And you also get to learn a little bit about his background, which has already been hinted at earlier in the comic. But they explained a little bit more of it. Why Fang also has a different costume than all of the other Beast Rangers. He has one of the elements of Snapper's costume, actually. There's got to be some kind of connection between him and Snapper. Actually, I'm looking at his collar, and I think I don't have his collar right. Let me go check out what his collar used to look like. He's back here. Okay, here's what his collar should be. From the side. Okay. He's got a black belt with throwing stars. And his collar is that one with the Chinese Li power symbol. Now I was about to give him a like an up collar. Take that back down. Might be cool. I think you can change the costumes between comics. And just say, oh yeah, I updated my look. But if you're doing it in the comic, you got to have a good reason. Like maybe you show them getting a new costume or something. All right. There's a really interesting video out today from Cartoonist Kayfabe. And it made an incredible point that I had not really considered before, but it's been on my mind for reasons. Some of you may be very offended by this point that I'm about to make, but it's I think it's like a 2014 era Wonder Woman spectacular, something like that. And it has a Jaime Hernandez Wonder Woman story, and in fact, actually, kind of leads with the Jaime Hernandez Wonder Woman story. And it's done in Jaime's inimitable style, his cartoonist style. Um, when they showed the, like the, what's it called, the thumbnail that you see on YouTube, and it says something like, the most, no, it says the only Wonder Woman comic you'll ever need, something like that. And I'm like, well, what's this about? And, me being pretty cynical, I'm like, well, it better be an old one because this new stuff ain't for me. Um, it wasn't that old, first of all, but it's really good. It is pretty good, and it's an actual Wonder Woman cartoon comic. I think we'll call it. But I'm going to get into this definition of what is a cartoon, and it's very entertaining. And they go up against Kanjar Row, which they didn't really mention in the video, but they showed it, and I knew who it was. And it stars Supergirl and Mary Marvel. And there's a really funny bit where I don't know, they crash into each other and it opens up this portal, and that's how Mary Marvel ends up there. And then Mary Marvel and Wonder Woman are just duking it out by throwing Supergirl back and forth at each other. It's really pretty good. Pretty good. But, and then at the end, they're like, well, look what else is in here. Um, and it's like David Finch or something like that. Now, first of all, I want to preface this by saying David Finch, tremendous technical talent. I should say that very much. His tremendous technical talent. But it came at the realization that, is David Finch really a cartoonist? I don't think he is. I think we could call him, like if we asked him, if we had David Finch right here, I mean, I guess I could ask him on his YouTube channel or something. It's like, do you consider yourself a cartoonist? I think he would come up with, I'm a comic artist or an artist. He could just say an artist or an illustrator. I mean, all those words kind of fit, but I don't think cartoonist fits. And I kind of left a comment in there that the over-rendered style is what's popular right now. And this is the thing that's been bothering me since I saw the Professionals a couple of nights ago, almost a week ago. And they were looking at Joe Kubert covers. And I don't know if it was just covers. But it was Joe Kubert stuff. And it was Sergeant Rock and Tarzan and Hawkman and everything else. And at one point, they point out some of the buildings in the background, and they're like, "Look at how he rendered these buildings. He didn't do any rendering at all. He just kind of showed the shape of the building as Hawkman is flying past." And nowadays, we couldn't get away with that. Of course, you couldn't get away with it. Nowadays, you would have to bring up SketchUp or something and then trace the building on there perfectly, and it would be super rendered. Um, it would look realistic, quote unquote. And somebody in the chat even said, well, their standards weren't as high for an artist back then. Which also, I'm going to say, undoubtedly true. Undoubtedly true. But he was a cartoonist, and that's what makes that a cartoon. That's what makes that a comic to me. And for all of that awesome, amazingly detailed rendering, I just can't stand to look at it. I know that's what people have kind of grown up on at this point. It's been over 20 years. I mean, I was showing the Steve Sadowski problem on a video a few months ago, and that problem was set in 20 years ago. Now, in the lifespan of comics, 20 years is, you might as well be a million years, right? When people look at Bronze and Silver Age comics, they look at them as the prehistoric past. They don't look at them as, oh, this is a thing that comics are like. Not at all. I just don't think that happens. And it's more tragedy than anything, because I would actually kind of describe these as over rendered. Um, and let me once again preface, for anyone who's, you know, a little slow, we used to use an R word for that. Uh, David Finch and others like him, Sean Gordon Murphy, for example, have tremendous technical ability. They are incredible, legendary artists, and their comics completely suck and aren't interesting at all. That's the part that people aren't going to like. I just have no interest in it. Give me good old Keith Giffen. I'll take Herb Trimpe any time, any day of the week. This is kind of my disagreement with your boy Zach. There's, at some point he either on his own decided or somebody convinced him to look at um, Batman in the 50s and Golden Age Batman, which are a couple of collections that appeared, and he hated it. He didn't understand it. He didn't understand what was going on. What's this? Batman as a silly superhero who, and Two-Face is committing. I always use this example. He's committing crimes themed with a number two. For example, he stole the most expensive two-person bicycle. um, that must seem tremendously idiotic to the modern comics fan. And it is. Because you know why? Because dressing up like a bat in a costume and literally assaulting criminals in the street is also idiotic. But it's fun. It makes it a fun story. Comics are, people hate me to say this, are for kids. I think adults can enjoy them too. That's what makes them fun. I also enjoy video games. I think manga understands this perfectly well. That's why shonen, which means young boy, children's book. It's all that One Piece, One Punch Man, Yu-Gi-Oh, and even the kind of the badass stuff like Fist of the North Star or whatever it is. It's for kids. But you can enjoy it too. They used to say for kids from 8 to 80. All right. Anyway, just something I was thinking about. And also, I mean, these over-rendered comics, who are they for? Your boy likes to talk about the divorced dentist who buys every issue of Spider-Man, for example, because he's always bought every issue. He doesn't really read them anymore. He gets them, they go in the stack, they go in the box, because that's been the habit. And he even has the ability in the cloud to go and get the keys. I don't say that word, keys. I bought these key issues. This is the first appearance of, whatever. if they actually open up those keys, quote unquote, they would see the art that looks a little bit like. Well, I'm not saying my art is that good. It would look more like my art than it would look like David Finch's art, though. It would look, you know, somewhat cartoony, maybe at least somewhat, at least in the Silver Age. When I was taking Hubert classes, there's a tremendous emphasis, even in the classes that are not really about drawing. Like narrative art is about storytelling and composition. They would want you to do finished pencils, for which is a necessity when you're doing that highly rendered style. Anyway, just a thought. Also, was thinking about Sergio Aragonés. Everybody knows who Sergio Aragonés is. They know his style really well. Um, Richard Friend, I think, had a retrospective, might not have been Richard Friend, of Sergio Aragonés art, which is the usual stuff, the Gru, the Wanderer, the Mad Magazine stuff. But he also had a horror comic that he drew that Neil Adams inked that was perfectly Silver Age. It's, the Silver Age look. Just great. I think matters of style, especially in cartooning, should be accounted for. That's all. All right. Where am I going with this? Where am I going with this picture? This is what I draw like. As you can see, there is some conceit to three-dimensionality, but it's not meant to look like that that super rendered look. I know I've been using the phrase over rendered, which sounds a little bit insulting, and I don't mean it that way. It's only over rendered if the preferences of the jerk reading it is me. I consider it over rendered. But I remember the moment I thought about that too, and I can't remember the exact issue, but I was in Monterey. I was in the army still, and it's probably 1995 or 1996. So, like I said, this problem's been around for a while, and for some reason, I got a copy of the Avengers, which I hadn't read in a long time, like a long time. There were some really cool comics for back then. This is kind of in the Image era, which I didn't care about Image for much. I did like the 1963 series. I also loved the Green Goblin um, series that came out just before Onslaught. That was out when I was in Monterey, and I liked the art in that. And I actually I revisited it because they put it out, and I didn't like it as much like when I reread it, but I remember liking that a lot. But I got this issue of the Avengers, and a couple of things were weird. Well, first of all, like Wasp had turned into some kind of insect version of herself, which was obviously drawn to look really cool, but it was kind of done with these sort of digital gradient art, and somehow Count Nefaria was involved in it, and there must have been some other things going on. But all I can tell you is the comic was like nothing. There was no story whatsoever in this comic, and I remember like getting to the last page, and I was like, "That's it? This is what they are doing now?" I mean, it's not like I hadn't read Marvel comics then. I was reading Green Goblin, which was done by Tom DeFalco. I was reading I had I think it was the year before they had done the Amalgam comics. You remember those? Those were really cool. Oh shoot, I just remembered what goes down here. I think he has like leg wraps. Let me make sure. I don't want to get this wrong. No, they're not. There's no leg wraps down here. Let me check it out, unless I missed it on this page. You know what? Over here, there's leg wraps. I might have been a bit inconsistent. Okay, well here's the definitive look. It's on page 1. No, page 2. Page 2. He does not have them. And then on page 3, he has them. What am I doing? I think I'm going to put him on there because I could kind of make the excuse that between page 2 when they're in the base, he puts them on. He's got them. And he's didn't show. So I would say he has them. You just can't see them because his feet aren't in the camera. He's still got them. I'm still consistent up through page 7. And then when I get to page 7, where does it go? I can imply them. So you still got them. All right, so that means he has them. And then he's off screen until he comes back here. So he should have them. All right, so let's put him back on him. Anyway, those are my thoughts on a Friday about, is it cartooning? I think that's why people don't really understand. I say people who are a bit young, um, who are just now getting into comics, possibly because of the movies, which there's no shame in that. It's kind of funny. There's a guy I know at work who's like, you know, he's really into superhero stuff. And he always wants to talk to me about, but really about the movies. But then when you start talking to him, he doesn't know anything about the characters, really. Like, he's like, oh, I'm so excited for Blue Beetle. I'm like, yeah, it's so cool to see a Charlton character get a movie. And he goes, what's a Charlton? What do you mean? You know? I'm like, Charlton characters, Steve Ditko. Well, and he's like, who's Steve Ditko? They don't know any of this stuff. So, and arguably, of course, it isn't the same character. It's not the Ted Kord character, but the legacy is there, and you know, and I was trying to explain to him that there's like a bunch of them, and they're even in the trailer, and I even showed them the little still from the trailer. Like here's the Dan Garrett one, and here's the Ted Kord one, and here's that bug thing. And did you watch Watchmen? Of course he watched. He knew everything about Watchmen. I'm like, so you read it? And he's like, no. He saw the movie. That's the reality. I think that's what the real disconnect is. I don't think the movies have done us any favors. We were so excited about superhero movies, when they started making them, and but it's really a whole different thing. All right, so I don't know what's going on here. Let's take a look. I got one figure. We got Vex here. Now, eventually, they're gonna have shadows his sword is on the ground. And then Vex's sword, Fang's sword is in front of the sword. You can see it's in front of. So that keeps him from swinging it back towards Vex here, who he's weakened with his special force field shield thing. And then with Vex, his arm, oops, is coming all the way back here. And he's sort of bare-armed. Bare-armed and sleeveless. Anyways, so anyone who is listening to this, I think you should not get offended. You should be heartened, probably, by knowing that, comic art is not just limited to these sort of master level artists, master rendering level artists. Number one, it's not. Um, which means that you probably could do it too. Isn't that nice to hear? I think this is all a consequence of a lasting, maybe a hangover from the speculator boom, right? If you're going to pump the value of something as goofy as a comic book over, to a crazy amount of money, well, it better be like the most fabulously artistic comic book ever created. A piece of fine art. And my point is, no matter what you create, it'll never be as good as Joe Shuster drawing Superman #1. And it won't entertain as many people as C.C. Beck drawing Shazam. Excuse me, Captain Marvel. I think there is such thing as a minimum standard. By the way, I would say I have not achieved a minimum standard yet for something as silly as commercial art. But I'm indie comics, I don't need to. And there's so much more possibilities, and there's so much more story possible. All right, this is going to be tough because I got to do this sword. I'm going to do the sword blade on its own layer so that when I erase it, oof, it won't hurt the other sword below it. How about that? That seems to work. However, this is the light. We're going to do dramatic uplighting because the light's on the floor now. There we go. Not that dramatic. Alrighty. We're just now hitting the 30-minute mark. Just now. Story matters. I think that's an important message. Not only that, your story matters as the creator. Oh, I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't think I can get that shadow in there. I can do a shadow behind, but maybe not there. All right, let's take a look. Pull the pencils off. What do we got? I'm going to call it a partial. Partial. All right. Please like, follow, and subscribe. This is Beast Rangers page 16. We're going to continue on to the break of dawn. We're going to keep going. I believe this is going to go to 18 now. I've got nothing drawn for 17, nothing drawn for 18, but we think we're going to get to page 18 before the story ends. It's all turning into this big showdown between Vex and the Beast Rangers, and then we come up with an ending and we explain. We gotta go and explain why this all happened and wrap up all the unwrapped threads. The captured scientists, the mysterious, where is it? The mysterious shadowy benefactor, the captured scientists. What happened to Snapper? What happened to Celeste? All this has to be wrapped up so we totally feel satisfied at the end. We've appreciated the whole story. Please like, follow, and subscribe, and I will see you later.